right. You're bloody well right. You got a bloody right to say, right.
So forget weapons and explosives. The TSA is spending time patting down kids and grannies, costing a hefty $7.8 billion to operate. I'm thinking enough is enough. And here to make the point is Kate Hanni from flyersrights.org. Kate, thank you for joining us this evening.
Thank you for having me.
So, we think maybe the TSA should, at least going through the screening process should be privatized. But as you look at the TSA's website, they say that they've taken away 40 weapons this week alone. They put their stats up and say they're doing a good job. You disagree?
Well, no, they've collected 40 weapons, but they would have collected those with the metal detectors. They didn't have to implement the body scanners, which do no more than the metal detectors and are costing taxpayers hundreds of millions of dollars every year as they implement them.
I guess the
pat-downs were implemented only to force people through the scanners. So, yeah, it's just ridiculous.
The other way to go with this, of course, would be to privatize the whole process, and that's what they're doing in Orlando. Why do you think that's a better idea? Why do you think that private companies would do a better job?
Well, here's what we know. Our hotline is toll-free, and people call it every day and give us all kinds of complaints. We've never once had a complaint from TSA where it's privatized. San Francisco is already privatized. It's been privatized for a long time. There's 16 airports in the U.S. out of 450 that are already private. And those 16 airports, as far as we're concerned, are the best. We've never heard of theft out of a bag from any of the private security. We hear less about the kinds of complaints of molestation and the groping and the kind of drama that we've heard from many airports where it's not private. The theft is the bigger issue. 17% of all theft out of bags happens with TSA agents that work directly for TSA. So, and also TSA has not been running background checks on a lot of their employees before hiring them, which we found out a couple of weeks ago that 500 TSA agents had been hired without background checks. And once they started running them, they found out that they had felons and pedophiles. And, so TSA is not doing a great job. With our resources.
We just saw on the screen that, the TSA receives on average about 363 complaints per week. You're saying that in the places where it's already been privatized that you don't see that to your own hotline. But why is that? I mean, what is the essential difference? Is their hiring process different? What is it about it that makes that makes flyers have a better time?
Well, I think basically it's competition. I think these private companies want the contracts and they're having to fight for them. And so in order to get them, they're having to really prove themselves. They're running background checks on all their employees. There's no theft happening, at least out of San Francisco and most of the other private airports that we're aware of. They are doing a better job and they're more pleasant, to be honest. I think they realized that there's a way of approaching passengers that's going to have them feel better about being groped than if you're just nasty when you're being groped. And I think that's a big piece of the puzzle. Now, would they continue to be that good if they were in every airport?
Yeah.
That's really the question. That's a hard answer. Probably not. If they didn't have to really fight for it, I don't know.
It is a hard question. And also, I wonder if it would really be cheaper for taxpayers in the long run, because certainly, when you have the government awarding contracts, even to private companies, graft slips in around the edges. There's payoffs. There's, giving it to the person, who's going to get you votes rather than to the person who's necessarily, the best service provider. So how do we know it would really be better in the long run if it was all privatized or cheaper?
We really don't. And there's no guarantee. Look at what happens in every other area of government when you have no bid contracts. Then the fees go through the roof. But right now, I like what I'm seeing with the private companies that are handling security. Now, that said, TSA dictates to the private companies how they have to handle security at the checkpoints. So the private companies really can't do anything differently in terms of the body scanners and the pat-downs. They have to do the same procedures, but they behave differently when they're doing it. That's what we've noticed. And theft is a big issue.
Yeah,
we see a lot of iPads.
A lot of iPads, a lot of people have complaints of what they've gone through at the airport. At the same time, we do need a line of defense there after everything that has happened. Kate and I, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
So here's the question of the day. The TSA is testing out private security screeners at the Orlando airport. Are you happy with the TSA airport security these days? Or do you think airport security should be privatized? We want to hear what you think, and you can like us on Facebook at facebook.com/Melissa Francis Fox, or follow me on Twitter at Melissa A. Francis. Coming up, move over Zuckerberg. I have a 13-year-old with his own app business. Plus, odds in your favor, spinning the same number 7 times. Is that possible? It's all coming up next, because you can never have too much money.
In today's economy, you need to own gold and silver. Smart investors are purchasing gold and silver to protect themselves. Don't wait any longer. You don't have to overpay. Don't be a victim of huge